Episode 89, what the heck? It's all out of order. I know. It's because we're excited to announce that Folly Coffee is now being served at Hot Hands Bakery in St. Paul, Minnesota. The reason we're releasing this episode early is because they're running a free coffee promo for the first week of the launch. Head to the link in this bio to get your free coffee now. On with the show. Hey, this is Rob. It's episode 89 of the Folly Coffee Podcast. Let's get it brewing. All right, that intro is way less awkward when everybody's wearing headphones, and when I'm the only one wearing headphones, we're just staring at each other in silence as the intro plays. But I am here with the Hot Hands team. Why don't you introduce yourself so we can associate a name with a voice?
I'm Tara.
I'm Lisa.
And what are your roles at Hot Hands?
Well, I'm the general manager here.
I am the owner, and some call me the Biscuit Queen.
The Biscuit Queen. I've been called a similar thing.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to announce I'm going to move this episode up to launch tomorrow, since tomorrow is officially, and I'm recording this on a Monday, so tomorrow is going to be our official launch of the Folly Coffee program at Hot Hands, and that's why I wanted to have you in here today.
I feel special that we got those.
But I want to go through the Hot Hands story because you guys are absolutely crushing it over in St. Paul, doing things over there that, based off what we've tasted at the roaster the few times we've had you over there, is absolutely incredible. And so I want to go back to the story, how you ended up from Chicago here in Minnesota, starting a bakery on your own, and then kind of the direction you're taking it, how you're doing the things you're doing, and just go through the whole story, because that's really what the point of this whole thing is.
All right, cool.
So how did you, Tara, get into food in the first place?
All right, so I usually started off with, when I was younger, my mom didn't really cook. A few things. She had her go-tos, her chicken breast with wishbone Italian dressing.
Of course.
A patty classic.
Just meatloaf, things like that. Really awesome. But
So you were raised in the Midwest is what you were saying.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Illinois, yeah. No, but I just, I think it was in high school where I started baking, and then I had a friend, and his dad was a chef in Chicago at the Hyatt Regency Hotel. And I think I was 16, and we went to visit his dad at work, and I just saw the shiny, all the stainless steel pots and the hoods and the tables, and I was like, what is this place? Because that was the first time I had seen a commercial kitchen. And just all, for holidays and things like parties at his house, my friend's house, they would have kick-ass food, just like fried fish and homemade tartar sauce and just beef Wellington for Christmas. And so I was I started getting into a little bit more of, I don't know, just things I had never seen. I was what's beef Wellington? It's pastry wrapped beef. What? But yeah, so I think that's kind of where it started. But, yeah, I was graduated high school and was going to school for Spanish, and realized that I was not going to be some sort of interpreter. I just wanted to learn the language. And then I was okay, I'll just go to community college and cook and try and learn some pastry stuff, and started, scooping ice cream at Oberwise Dairy. Do you remember Oberwise?
Oh, heck yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
So at this point, as you're going to school, do you have an end goal in mind that you're because it's always kind of fun to find the inception moment of when you start your own business, and it's sometimes hard to know, but having started Hot Hands now, is this something you had in mind as you're going to school to learn cooking, to learn pastry? Did you have the ultimate goal of starting your own business?
At that point, no. I think I had, I started to learn a little bit more about professional kitchens and restaurants, and, everyone's oh, it's super long hours and you're on your feet a ton and the pay isn't that great. And, I just wanted to learn as much as I could and cook as much as I could, and, just have a job in a restaurant that I really cared about and that I really liked. And, Yeah, I think my first real kitchen job was Little Goat, actually, in Chicago. So
Yeah, if you're not from Chicago, because I lived in Chicago for a couple of years now. Lisa, tell me I'm pronouncing this right. Stephanie Izard.
That is correct.
See,
yeah,
I'd only read it at that point. I said Izard. She's like, no.
Yeah, it's a common
Name
mistake.
loosely translates to mountain goat, hence le goat.
All the goats, yeah.
And so if you're not from Chicago, you might not be familiar with the name, but if you're in Chicago, the GOAT is a big time name, and she is a James Beard Award winning, like very highly touted chef. So it's not a small name to just casually drop, which is awesome. How did you end up at that connection? Because you both were working on that team, correct?
Yeah. We had met each other through Little Goat, actually.
Yeah. So I started doing milkshakes, which is funny, like full circle. We serve some pie milkshakes at Hot Hands, and sometimes I'm like, man, I feel like I'm at Little Goat again.
Cranking out
the shakes and the terrible noise that it makes when you run it into the side of the tin or the aluminum, whatever it is.
Was Little Goat a place that you sought out, that you're like, here's a place that I want to work? Or how did you even go about finding that position?
That was another strange like connection that I had. A friend knew one of the pastry chefs there, Minnie Rafalski. Remember? Shout out to Minnie. But
Minnie
yeah, he kind of, it was in Philadelphia. They had worked with like mutual people, and he emailed her or texted her and was like, "Hey, my friend is fresh out of baking school. What do you think?" And I didn't know anything. I was like, "What's a Cambro? What's that? What's oh, okay, yeah." But I had like little, like ice cream shop and like a little bakery job in like the suburbs. But Little Goat was like a huge step. I think I had wanted to work at Girl and the Goat. But yeah, I started over at Little Goat, and then they moved me over to Girl and the Goat in like 3 months because I had an itch to. I was like,
you were just crushing the milkshake game, like, so are they like, we gotta move her over?
Yeah. It was just Matthew Rice was like, he was like, "Hey, we need some pastry cooks over there. Would you want to do that?" And I was like, "Oh, definitely, yeah." And I met Lisa's sister in the bakery at Little Goat, so we were both working at both places, Gina and I. And then I met Lisa after Gina, and then I don't know.
All right, so there's the first meeting of you two. So, Lisa, what is your story? How did you get into food?
Yeah, I was a hospitality kid from the beginning, I think, out of a necessity to have a job.
Paying bills is awesome.
Yeah, paying bills is like kind of a necessity. So started out pretty young, 15, as a hostess, and then worked in some other front of house positions in suburban restaurants for a while, and I had actually seen Steph on Top Chef while she was competing, and I was like, I will work for you. So my sister ended up over there before I did, and a position opened up. It was actually a hosting position. I was like, I don't care what it is. I'll wash dishes.
She's a winner of the season 4 of Top Chef.
Yeah, you can call me, I'll polish silver, whatever it is. So I started there as a host, hosted there for 6 months with some like incredible mentorship. Some of the people that we've met there are still to this day a part of, our success in launching, the new restaurant, Hot Hands, everything. So working there for my career there really kind of exploded at a rapid rate because of those people. And their ability to recognize, like, she's hungry, let's hold on to good talent. So I hosted for 6 months, served for 6 months, floor managed for 6 months, was the AGM for about 6 months, and then generally managed for, a couple of years before moving on. But it was an insane progression, and I learned so much. And it was just like I think like the focal, I still look back at that as like boot camp.
I was going to say, it sounds like you crammed like 15 years of experience in like
a
4-year period.
I started, navigating and to host, just say, okay, you're a host at Little Goat. You're figuring out how to seat 1,000 humans in essence from 7:30 in the morning until 4 p.m., just one service. So it's not just you're taking names, it's a serious, there's a nuance and a skill to it. So learning how to handle that type of, volume and pacing and how critical it is, and you see that what you do at the host stand affects everybody from the kitchen to the servers to the chefs, and then learning, how to write a budget and profit and loss. And I'm like, the first time I saw a P&L there, which is just line item after line item after, it looks like another language to me, and I'm like, and you want me to do what with this document? But I had incredible people that showed me the way, and because of that, because I was just kind of fearless at the time and was like, well, we're doing this. I'm going to present and break down to some of the big wigs in the company, documents and numbers and things that I have no formal training on or any expertise. Like, I can pour you a sick cup of coffee, or I can manage the F out of some event, and crowd control and all those things that come in with such a high volume, high chef. She has incredible expectations, and that was ingrained in me at such an early age to, like, you don't just walk into a restaurant, you look up, down, all around. There's something to fix. You make something better every day. You don't just walk into service, okay, we're here to serve pancakes. Like, you're here to provide an experience for someone that's coming here. It's a destination spot. They're coming here to experience this.
It seems to me in all business that there's kind of like two ways to go about hiring or finding talent or promoting from within. It's like the traditional way, which I think is really stupid, is you go, what's your resume? Okay, do you have relevant work experience? And you go, okay, you look good on paper. It fits the role we're looking for. And then the second one is like, who just gets shit done?
Right.
And that seems to be how they were approaching it, that even though you were at a host position or positions that maybe you didn't have the resume or the quote-unquote qualifications to be doing the P&L, that this is a person who gets shit done, and they'll figure out how to do it. And having people that know you don't have experience in it, so that there will be a lot of questions initially, but those seem to be businesses, and especially in food and beverage, where, like you're talking about, there's always something that needs to get done. And so if you're just hiring somebody because of the experience you've had, that kind of, you don't know all those X factor stuff. And this has come up just a couple episodes ago about just the people who are really effective get shit done. And those are the people that I like to find or work with. And even on a weird customer side is, well, yeah, you don't really technically choose your customers because you want to sell your coffee to as many people, but I want to partner with people who get shit done, because that means it's going to be an effective partnership versus just a more transactional thing that you are a coffee supplier, we serve your coffee, we will buy it from you, and then we're good. It's like, no, I think there's a really cool way to be able to do coffee just outside of this. And then we'll talk some of that when we get to that point, because I think some of the promotional things we'll be doing are really fun. So you meet each other at this point, is it Girl and the Goat or is it Little Goat?
We kind of like overlapped. I think I was maybe on my way out when you started to work
and
there,
literally the restaurants are all a stone's throw away from each other. So you can be
I was
at Little Goat
time at
and see Girl and the Goat. So she had kind of progressed to, they both have their unique challenges. I think Girl and the Goat's menu, technical wise, is a little bit more challenging and rounds you out more as a chef. But
it's definitely a good place to start. Like a good place, like it's unlike any other restaurant I've ever seen. Like her restaurants are, she, like, when her expectations of the employees and the staff there, it's like almost unrealistic, which is why I think her places are so great, because she just holds everyone up to these insane standards, which is something like I had no experience going in there, and it was like, okay, so this is how it is. Like, this is the standard of every restaurant. That's what I was thinking of in my mind. And then you go to some other places and there's
so
not
you,
as
Tara, going
crazy,
into it, were like got connected and you ended up there and then learned this. And then you were the flip side. I will do whatever it takes to work with you and work from the ground up. And it's cool that you came to the same conclusion, because sometimes if you're thrown into that situation where you maybe not necessarily have sought out this position and then you get in there and then they have these crazy expectations that you're like, screw that. This sucks. I'll go find somewhere where it's not as stressful.
You sink or you swim. And I think that's like her. Yeah. It's like how you were saying, the resume thing is like, you don't have to have worked at this place and this place under these amazing chefs. Like, which I'm learning a lot. I've learned a lot having hot hands, like after operating this place, is like, you don't necessarily have to have 5 years of baking experience. If you're willing to get shit done and like, you know, do the grind and just like work through it. I think that's something that's a lot more important than, you know, working under some fancy chefs or, you know.
And then you end up like having a team that wants to be associated with something that's working on a different level versus someone who's like, this is too much work. They want to go find a place where it's just like, we'd rather just have you be comfortable at all times.
Right. That type of team pushes each other. And, you know, like you're finding that, not to like be a Danny Meyer fangirl or anything, but like,
it's okay, I am too.
Yeah. But there is something to be said about that 51% versus 49% philosophy, where the 49% being, you know, the technical skills that you can teach most capable humans, and the 51% being, you know, your personality, the innate capacity that you have to like exude genuine hospitality and your emotional maturity, all those things that just can't be taught. I can't teach you how to be kind and how to want to, you know, at the end of the day, we're here for hospitality and we're here to give people what they want. And we're here to build human connection through food and beverage. And that's what it is, what it's about. And I can't teach you to want that. I can teach you to cook. Tara can teach you to cook. I can teach you to make coffee. I can teach you how to serve, how to operationally do all these things. But if you don't want it or have the capacity to do it or get it, quote unquote, we're working an uphill battle. You know?
It's super prevalent in the coffee world, as I'm sure you know, that on the barista side, it's the same kind of thing. It's like, oh, we just want a barista that has all the technical experience that we need to pull the best shot of espresso. And it's this weird thing that I've noticed is that the person who's most excited about only wanting to learn about espresso probably doesn't want to talk to anyone.
Yeah. Yes,
for sure.
Totally.
Yeah,
it's so unique to find that unicorn.
It's really hard to find.
It's a weird conundrum.
It's super hard to find someone that wants both and wants to just be like super, I don't know, just friendly and accommodating and happy, but then also
it's a tortured artist. They're like, I don't care who you are, you will not appreciate what I've done in this shot of espresso that I'm serving you. And then the only people they will talk to at all is somebody who knows all the technical aspects and is really appreciating. Where 95% of customers that come through don't even may not even notice or say, hey, this is really good, and not understand that everything went into it. But if they had a great experience, there are neighborhood shops that's their entire business.
Absolutely.
Is we serve an okay cup of coffee, but we're your neighborhood place.
Totally.
And that's what I love about what you're saying about expectations. I think sometimes as things shift away from like any sort of stress or any sort of anxiety, I'm like pressure makes diamonds. Like if you're not stressed or have a little anxiety about anything, then nothing's going to continue to elevate upwards. And it's the sad truth. It's like if you're staying stagnant in what you're doing, you're not progressing and you're not pushing forward, and there's always something to push forward with. And so that's how I view it. I think you'll see that with a lot of our customers. Those are the people we love to partner with, are the ones that are like, no, a little stress is good. That's
I like being uncomfortable.
We tell each other all the time, they're like, should we maybe not turn the ordering system off and just see if we can do it? We like embrace the challenge.
I mean, the poor hot hand staff is like, oh God.
Oh yeah, we have to like manage their anxiety about us wanting to push them so hard because I know that we can get more out of people if we continue to be that example and push each other.
So that's what we're trying to do. Yeah,
we feed off each other really well, and like if I'm falling short, I tell her all the time, I expect you to call me out, and the same thing. We hold each other accountable so that we can be that example. We have a little bit of a younger team, and you know, it's a challenge, but also I think a great opportunity that I'm grateful for because it rounds me out to be able to develop someone from the beginning up.
And that's when you look at someone like Stephanie Izard, there was probably a long period of time where these practices seemed unrealistic until there's this weird tipping point that all of a sudden your reputation precedes you, and then people want to do that stuff. And so that's got to be a strange thing, especially when you're first starting a business, that you have these crazy standards, crazy to some, let's say, and people are like, why? Like, why would I put up with this? Or why do I want to do this? Until you get to that point that a reputation's established, and they go, well, yeah, of course it's like this because this place is amazing, or this person is who they are. And the funny thing about a reputation is the way you get a reputation is by what you do. So it's this catch-22 that if at any point you kind of start to concede or you start to fold on things, that you'll never quite reach that reputation where it makes sense. And that's the weird thing about entrepreneurship or starting a business is people think you're crazy until you're not. Until you're doing something that people go, oh, so this is like real now. So all the things you've been talking about are now happening, and it's. I don't know what that tipping point is. I don't think I'm there yet. I think people still think I'm crazy. But when I look at chefs like that, you go, yeah, the reason they're able to do what they do, or on the bakery pastry side, is because of that. And so you're now at Girl and the Goat, and kind of crossing paths. How long were you, Tara, at Girl and the Goat?
Collectively, like 3.5, 4 years. I left a couple times and then realized that
you always
go back to the Goats.
You always go back to the Goats. Yeah. There's something about it.
Yeah, I spent a good chunk of time there. I mean, probably 4 years. I had also broken my foot in that time, and so I was like doing weird like administrative work that I had I was trying to copy and paste doing like beer descriptions for the bar and like training manuals, and I'm like, I'm a line cook, I don't really know what I'm doing. But they like the team there though, like Aaron Tabo was the CDC at the time, and he was my mentor. I mean, he taught me a ton. I'm always in almost any situation that is, I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to deal with this. Like if it's a staffing thing or like a guest complaint or the opposite, a guest really likes something. I'm like, what would Tabo do? Like he was just like my sensei. I don't know. He was just the same with best.
Me with Tara Zavagnin, and our mentors actually work together now. Small world, they work together in Chicago still, and they were, because I think Steph was so smart to put the best people in the right places. That's what really kind of, enabled us to be able to do what we did. And it's so cool because it translates at Hot Hands now when we have young kids that are like, how do we teach us to be you? Mm-hmm. And it's
then you're like, you don't want this kid.
I'm just like, I'm not like sleeping a lot, and it's like not as glamorous as it seems. But no, it's like it is how you were saying, it's like crazy until it's not, and it's like people are like, oh, God, it's insane. Like, how do you just keep going? And you just like, against. It's a hard thing to do, it's like to build a brand and something that, like I feel like I had my network in Chicago and then I came up here and I felt like it wasn't a long time that I was up in Minnesota until this like opportunity kind of came around, and I was like, God, I don't know anyone here. Like, how do I just build this thing from literally the ground up? Like, I don't know line cooks, I don't know bakers here, I don't know. I worked for Patisserie 46 for like 8 months, and I was like, I don't even, like not even a full year until I like had this kind of happening. And then but it's no one cares as much as you do, and I think you understand that, like starting Folly, and like it's easy to do something and like to give 120% to something that you care about. It's, it's like corny, but it does not feel like work. Like it's, it's just like your life. It's, you have to, like I'm like, is this what like having a kid is like? I don't know. I feel like Hot Hands is like, it's just like so easy to put so much into it. And like,
I was reading a study, and they were comparing, because you always hear that contrast of like, oh, this is my baby, this is my child. And they found in this study that it actually, people that are small business owners talking about their business, it triggered similar parts of the brain as parents talking about their kids. And so I'm not a parent. I can't speak on it. Sure. I'm sure anyone with a kid right now is like, screw you, man. It's not the same. You don't even know. But and it's funny that you say that about Folly. It's like being really particular about things can seem really crazy when you're not doing anything. And when you first start, people are like, chill out, man. Like you're not that big of a deal. This is not that big of a deal. Like relax on the small stuff. And like, for example, I remember explaining this to Jeff. Anytime he would respond to me and be like, hey, like how much of the dark roast did we need to roast? How much of the decaf? I go, no. it's the casual Friday dark roast, it's the REM cycle decaf. And like it's referring to things very specifically. And he's like, why is that important? And I go, because everybody has decaf. Everybody has dark roast. And I go, this is ours. Mm-hmm. And it's funny. You'd see it from customers that they start ordering dark roast, dark roast, dark roast. And if you respond with Casual Friday, if you respond with the names of these brands, then all of a sudden they're ordering that. Yeah. And it turns it into a slightly different thing. And then I don't know if you know Yia Vang. He's a chef, and he's been on the podcast multiple times. He's one of my favorite people. He's like, I brought you and Jeff up to someone, and they're like, who are you talking about? And they're like, oh, you mean like Folly Rob and Folly Jeff? And I was like, go back to like day one of Jeff working with Folly, and every time I refer to him, it's Folly Jeff. And now, whether he wants it or not, he's Folly Jeff, at least while he's here.
He's in my phone as Folly Jeff.
Exactly. And people go, how did that happen? I go, it's not an accident. And it's because you have to feel ridiculous and uncomfortable for a while with being super picky about things, because long term, it just builds itself. And it's so hard to explain to someone without sounding crazy that I go, I know I'm going to seem like an asshole right now, but I need you to do it this way.
Yeah, it seems ridiculous to people, yeah.
Yeah, especially when you're first starting, because I think any great business, if you were to explain what you think it will be someday or the things that you want to accomplish someday, that people are like, maybe tamp those expectations a little bit, maybe calm down a little bit. But if you don't have those end goals in mind, then you're just going to be cool with it. Oh, hey, I'm able to, have a business and we're getting by. And whereas having that full thing, and I know I reference psych studies all the time, but when it comes to job satisfaction, it's not like pay and these things that people think are the most important factors. The number one factor in jobs, whether it's your own business or working a job, is meaning in your work. And so something like a baking position or a barista position, if you're at a place that you're not stoked about what they're doing, it's just a job, and then all of a sudden you're going to start to think about all the things that suck about that job, and it's not fulfilling in any way. Whereas with, you say you always end up back up at the GOAT. You always end up back at the GOAT because you probably go other places, and you're like, this is just a job.
Yeah.
It's the same amount of pay, it's the same position, but at this other place, it was a part of something bigger, and I was a part of a bigger thing going on. And those are the types of things I always think about. That I'm like, I barely make anything, and I'm working more than than I should be, and it's a really stressful. But like you said, it's like I love it because it's a part of
it's
this
easier to
thing.
do that when it's something that you care about. Like for me, it's hard to fake it where it's like, I don't know, like I have to really like Buff House, the last restaurant that I was at in Chicago before I moved up here. I was a pastry chef there, and that was a place. It was a really small place, and that place I was like, I love it. It was like I've worked at other restaurants, and they were doing their thing, and I respect that completely, but it just wasn't my thing. But this a few years at Buff House, and I was like, damn, these people are they have the same. I don't know. They bust ass, and they make awesome food, and they their attitude towards using every single scrap, like dehydrating. Like, you want to save these tomato skins? And he's like, dehydrate them. Yeah. Like, okay, yeah, sure. We'll make a tomato powder. Yeah, cool. But just the attitude with everything, it just I don't know. Brian's my old boss. He just taught me a lot about, just making everything with a purpose and food waste, obviously, but yeah, creative. And
what brought you up to Minnesota from the Chicagoland area?
Max. So he's my partner, my boyfriend. We met in Chicago, and he was going to Loyola, and we met there, and I was at a party. I was not going to Loyola. But we dated for a little bit, and then he did his thing, I did my thing, and we reconnected after 5 years, and he's like, hey, would you want to come up to Minnesota? I was like, oh, sure, I'll give it a try, yeah. But it was also I've lived in Illinois my whole life. Something that Aaron Table also told me, he's like, you can cook in any city you want. Don't feel like you have to stay in one place. You should definitely go and see how other people do things and, move around. And but yeah, I moved up here and I was looking at the restaurant scene, of course, because I was like, well, I got to make sure it's a place that I'd be happy to, you know, be a part of this restaurant scene. And I was like, damn, this place is like, yeah, there's some really cool places here and really talented people. And I'm sure, you would find that in any city. But, I came up here and then was working at Patisserie 46 with John Krause. And a friend, so Max's dad's friend told me about a new building being built, and which is where Hot Hands and Chips is. But I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Just kind of like brushed it off. And then I was like, okay, all right, like this is down the street from my house. It's, so that's super convenient. And then it was just kind of, on Snelling Avenue. And I was, everyone's like, oh, right on Snelling. That's a great location. And I'm like, it's a weird street name. Yeah. I still don't know anything about the Twin Cities. Like at this point,
that's where Snelling in my brain is just like, it's ingrained in my brain. You're like, Snelling Ave. It's like iconic. And you're like, that's a stupid name. Yeah.
I'm just like, Snelling or like, is that, okay. But no, I was talking to some people yesterday, a couple regulars, and I was telling the story kind of where it just was progressing whether or not I wanted it to. Like it just like seemed like it was all, things were working out, and like I had a friend that built benches and he built the booths. Max's dad built the pieces of wood for that and like the wooden fixtures on the walls, and like we had, I don't know, I started doing farmers markets and trying to get, people to recognize who I was and to, try to, get to know the community. Honestly, I was like, I just, I want to feel, feel it out and see how, see what people like. And if I can make something that they think is pretty good, that's awesome. Like, I'm like, I could have a brick and mortar. That's insane. Like, I don't know anything about loans or,
I still don't.
Like, yeah, right. I'm like,
we
sure.
learn every day.
Yeah. And it was a brand new building. And we were talking like one of the, people who owned the building is like, who told me about the available unit, that Hot Hands is in now. And I mean, he taught me a lot too. And he owns other properties in, the Twin Cities. And so I learned a lot from just like hanging out with him, just like going to meetings and, meeting with the architects and the builders. And I was like, wait, but like there's an architect and a builder. What's the difference? But I learned a lot. I was just like, oh, okay. So the architect draws the stuff and the builders build the stuff. Okay.
And they're like, uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. I felt like, and I'm like this young woman in a sea of like, 8 old dudes, and
you're like, what's the name of the street again?
But God, yeah, it sounds super cool.
You hold your own, you do. You know that.
But no, it just like, I was like, the way that I've always been is just kind of like, I'm like, I'll figure it out. Yeah, let's just do it. Just, we can talk about it all day, or we could do it. Like,
it's the fake it till you make it, which is, I'm not crazy about that. But in things like that, that if it's not exactly what you do, so like you're not a loan officer, you're not an architect or a builder, it's like, why should I know about these things? Those are the things that I'll fake all day, every day, and I'll say absolutely. And then there's this Google thing that I can like, okay, what words do I need to know? Am I getting ripped off? Those types of things.
Yeah.
So in business, most of it's faking it, but what you weren't faking is what you were doing. Mm-hmm. And so how long of a process was that from getting introduced to this building to going through the architecture, the building, getting everything built out and launched?
I would say, man, I'm trying to think, because I feel like at the time it felt like time was dragging, and it's like if they say it's going to be done on October, just assume that it's going to be like January or whatever. But a little over a year. Okay. I mean, it was like pretty fast from like learning about this. It used to be a flower shop, I think. But it was pretty dilapidated, like nothing, it was a very old building. But I learned about it. They demoed it, and then they started rebuilding this very commercial looking building, which, I have my own feelings about, but no, it's what you put on the inside, which, yeah.
Well, that is something to say about that space. That on the outside, it's kind of just along this line of buildings on Snelling, and then you walk in. I mean, Jeff.
Yeah.
After I told him about you guys, because he reached out, he went and picked up food that evening, and he texted me. He was like, Have you been in here? I was like, yeah. He's like, this place is sick. It's very unassuming, which kind of in a weird. It's unassuming, yeah. It's like it adds to the experience too. So let's hop over to the Lisa timeline here. So she has left for Minnesota, and you're in Chicago. What are you doing during this time? Are you aware that this is going on as Hot Hands is being built out and all this is happening up here?
Yeah, definitely. My sister, was involved, I think, with. I don't know what she did for helping with Hot Hands, or if it was just supporting you on the back end, or just being like a Tara cheerleader. But I was definitely kept in the loop from my sister. At that time, I was still living in West Town in Chicago. I'm not sure if when you started, if I was still at Willis Tower, or if I had moved on to West Town Bakery. But I was kind of sensing that my time in Chicago was kind of coming to an end. I'd experienced all different types of concepts, and some very chef-driven concepts, some very coffee-driven concepts, some really large-scale multi-unit operational jobs. So really, not to say that like you're always learning, but I definitely felt like I wanted to shake things up a little bit as far as like location. Then reached out to Tara around, I don't know, sometime last year. And I was just looking to kind of shake things up a little bit. Like I said, just get out of Chicago. My partner was looking to move up here for just like family reasons and things like that. So it worked out like pretty perfectly. I called her and was like, what's up? Hey, it's Lisa. Hey, you need anything? And it worked out really well because while coffee and hospitality and, all the things that come along with it is my passion, like I always go back to the farther I guess I've go into the operations ladder and was like an operations manager at Willis Tower and things like that. There are things I loved about that and learned about that, but I still was always drawn towards, like the barista would call out and I'd be like, oh, I'll make the coffee. I'll do that. And they'll be like, Lisa, do you think that making lattes and pulling shots is the best use of your time? I said, absolutely.
You're like, it's more work, it's perfect for me.
But it's also like therapy. It's cathartic, to do the thing that I love, and to come to Hot Hands and be able to do both, to be able to still make coffee on a day-to-day basis, but also, be entrusted to make operational decisions and still have my hand in growing and learning in that capacity is like a really cool thing that Tara's afforded me. So I moved up here in like December of last year, kind of got my bearings, and then came on as the general manager of Hot Hands and really focused on, service, developing the staff, the coffee program in general, and that's how we met. And that's how we met you.
That's how we met Folly Rob.
And that's how we met Folly Rob.
And that's when it all went downhill.
When we went to the dark side.
It was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, but it's been honestly like Tara said, I'm coming up here with no network. I have my certain vendors, we were just talking about who do I call up here when the espresso machine breaks? Like there's certain things that are just have been ingrained in my head and relationships and things that have taken years to cultivate, and to come up here and not have any of those existing partnerships or anything like that is definitely, a new challenge, but it's something that Tara and I are grateful to be able to navigate and find partnerships, not just like you said.
Yeah.
It's very important to us to find partnerships and not just transactional. Okay, we're going to purchase from X from you, Y from you, Z from you. It needs to, for me, it needs to make sense with our concept, but also like I don't know, you guys are weird and funky and do cool things and have tasty coffee, and like we're weird and funky and have good pies and biscuits, and I don't know, just like it's exciting for me to find new partnerships and new ventures and new things like that. So.
That's what I think was like one of the funnest things actually about not knowing any people up here is that like when you just, I don't know, like you put your head down and you do the work and it's just like you do what you know and what you think is right. It's almost like people gravitate towards that, or like you find those partnerships that you really like, or like those people like, I don't know, just like after having Hot Hands, I met people just from like people coming into the shop and like forming relationships with them. And like now we have another restaurant next door, and it's like meeting Tim just through Hot Hands, and like he's the bartender and like just like such a badass. I don't know. He's just like, I feel grateful to be working with him. You know, it's just like, why is he working with me? I don't know. Like, but it's, you know, cause we have him and I, and like me and Lisa, and you know, I'm sure like you and I'll learn that we have a lot in common. Cause it's just like, you just do the work and you just like, you know, put out the best thing that you possibly can.
Well, I have a very strange group of friends, because if you look at me, like I don't see what's happening here, but it's like anybody that is passionate about what they do and a hard worker, I'm going to get along with. I don't care if we don't have a single hobby or anything in common at all. And that's the funny thing about me and Jeff. I think sometimes people look at us and go, "How are you guys? You guys must be a ton of friction. You must not get along." And I was like, "No, we have like the same." Like we have the same like values. Yeah. We just present very radically differently. And so that's the whole thing is where I'm like, I'm Jeff's hype man because he won't do it himself. Yeah. But in terms of like working hard and passion, he had no prior coffee experience outside of a barista job before coming on Folly. And
which is wild to me.
But it's like when you see someone like that, you go, well, if I had just gone out and go, I just need someone that can roast, and that's what I need. That's probably all that position's ever going to be, but he's taken it and been able to elevate everything we do to the next level, which goes right back to what you were saying, is like people who get shit done is what you got to look for first. You can learn the other stuff, but you're not even going to want to learn if you don't have that kind of drive. And so you move up here, you've got, well, I also want to mention that you're serving out of a La Marzocco espresso machine. You've got a great Curtis Wilbur brewing setup. What influenced your decision to have such a great coffee setup and to be intentional about the coffee you serve?
Well, I guess I reached out to people that I knew in Chicago too. Just like, actually, I think it was Ryan Daly from Hogsell.
Of course, yes.
I will say this to preface it, so you don't have to worry about what you say. I'm from Minnesota. I love Minnesota, Twin Cities, love you. Chicago's coffee scene is way ahead of what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And so the standard in Chicago, so you're probably just like, I got the setup that I thought I was supposed to get I think is way ahead of what the standard is here in Minnesota.
Yeah, I just honestly, I asked a lot of questions, a lot of favors, a lot of advice from people that I had used, you know, I had worked with in Chicago, and just like baristas that I knew, kitchen designers. I mean, like Jeff Maiman, like I'd called him about layout and like service flow and like how the barista counter was set up, and even kitchen questions and just equipment, and just, you know, trying to find where, you know, I asked so many questions. I mean, but yeah, just I reached out to some people, some coffee folks that I knew in Chicago, and they told me what to get.
And they're just like, yeah, this is a solid setup.
Are you sure this is like super expensive? And they're like, just do it. Yeah. And the advice I got was like, be ready to just drop thousands and thousands. Like that's the minimum. Like kitchens and restaurants are so much money. Like ask favors, do anything that you can yourself. And the rest is like, you can't compromise on like grinders and the machines and, you know, like mixers and, but
walking into her restaurant, I honestly, legitimately did not have a single wish as far as the barista side, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
I just walked into just an incredible setup, and I was like, I have so much to work with here. And I have it was awesome.
When we get incoming requests for like samples and stuff, and they say, I have my own equipment, the immediate gut reaction is like, okay, what are we going to be working with?
Sure,
Like, can this thing even do our coffee justice? Like,
We actually have a Mr. Coffee.
I do have a Mr. Coffee, and I'm proud of that here. I've got a full TikTok video explanation of why I have a Mr. Coffee. Yes, that is true. The podcast coffee machine is a Mr. Coffee because I'm damn proud that it's the beans that are the start to a great cup.
Yes.
Everything else is working towards perfection. But the difference between a Mr. Coffee cup of coffee with a few hacks that I like to do to amp it up a little bit. But when you start with a great bean, it's really a small incremental differences between that and like a perfect cup of coffee.
Yeah.
But that's
which
also I
Caught my eye
just like to
I
be
love
ironic.
it. That's
It's
a great
stupid.
bit. That's a great bit.
hearing you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, like you can't compromise on the machinery, but like, I mean, you can if your starting ingredients are crap, then it's gonna be crap. But
And
like,
but what you're doing by having great equipment, especially when you say grinder is one where you look at they've got a $600 one. I'll get that one versus the $1,500 to $2,000 range. The grinder is the first step of amazing coffee. And if you're compromising on there, you're going to have inconsistency of size. And then it doesn't matter how great of a barista you have. So we were pumped when we learned about this setup because it was like, oh my God, yes, this is exactly where we want our coffee.
Yeah, and it's super important to treat the ingredients and the beans and like whatever, the pie dough, everything with respect. And, running a business, a restaurant is like people come back for consistency, right? Like if your machinery breaks or your grinder goes out, it's like, okay, well now I guess I'll upgrade, but I don't know. I guess it's just like, just respecting what you're working with is really important to make a good.
So something that's not often considered on the coffee side when you're talking about equipment is the people you would attract to work there. Because good baristas are going to be particular. And they're like, I'm not going to want to sit at a place with a rundown espresso machine that they got used from some shop. They don't know when's the last time it got serviced, what's your cleaning procedure. If those things aren't in place, there's a whole talent pool that will walk in, see that rundown equipment and say, I'm not even going to consider working here. I don't care what the job is like. Whereas that equipment, baristas go, oh, that's where you go, I assume this place is doing great things and they have to prove me otherwise. And the talent you attract with that, you'll be able to get those third wave style, those craft coffee level baristas to want to work there in the first place, which is something that, especially if you don't come from the coffee world, you'd be like, what person walks into somewhere, sees equipment, and lets that decide if they want to work somewhere? You're like, someone who likes really great coffee is going to be extremely frustrated if they don't have the right tools to serve great coffee. You're both nodding at each other as I say that.
Yeah.
Lots of side eye going
100%.
on here.
I think that's part of, a giant part of my focus and part of why I think that Tara wanted me to come on was to bring a little bit more of that like respect for coffee and respect for just the practice in general. Like there's so much that goes into coffee and it's not just, that goes into baristing. It's not just coffee. You have to be able to steam different textures of milk and understand different coffee builds and understand tea and understand matcha and things like that. And if it's not something that they're passionate about, like you said, if we're working with subpar equipment or things like that, immediately, I'm personally speaking, like not going to be that interested in working there. So we've had, guests comment the way that we steam and treat the wands in between service or in between a rush. We'll, throw some rinse on there and get a pitcher going. And guests notice those things. And a guest had told me the other day, I stopped going to this one coffee shop because I saw them re-steam their milk. And, that tells me guests know, number one, that's a giant sin. And number two, that they're paying, the general consumer is more knowledgeable than we give them credit for.
That right there, because someone who's a knowledgeable consumer, they notice that thing, they never come back.
They'll never come back.
Do you think they're going to order, see if it tastes good, then complain about it, and then you go, oh, we should stop doing this?
Right.
Experienced, educated consumers see the things they go, I'm never. If I go into a place and they've got milk on their wand, I'm out.
You're out immediately. I'm the same way.
And you go, well, there's milk on the wand. Just don't order a latte. Don't order a cappuccino. I go, I wasn't going to in the first place.
Right.
But if they're doing that, then everything about this coffee program is probably slightly flawed or potentially disgusting.
Yeah, it's a giant red flag, and I'm trying to teach. And we have a younger team of baristas, and it's great to be able to work with them and really like develop and show them the way. There's been several times where they seek out. They're proud to show me their milk. They're saying, "Lisa, look at this milk. It looks like that paint texture you were talking about. It's glossy. It looks, they're getting them excited and proud of what they're pouring, and like extending challenges to them, like, hey, give me a couple ideas for a special and I'll put it on the menu." And they get those little things to them, and having ownership of what goes on the menu and what they're pouring. And, like we were talking about earlier, it may seem micromanaging almost to stop someone mid-drink and say, "No, that's wrong. We're not going to serve that." I did that the other day. But then that barista came back to me later and said, "Thank you for doing that. That I won't do that again because you did that."
You have to work under the assumption that whatever person is getting that drink, it's their first time being there.
Absolutely.
It's their first time having that drink. It's their first time trying anything associated with hot hands. And so it's like all the little things combined, that if you let the little things sound, well, that one was pretty solid, then they go, well, this place is pretty solid. And then they're not going to want to tell anyone about it. They're not going to go out of their way to come back. And that's the same way any coffee we send out the door, I go, I'm assuming this is the first time anybody's ever tried it. Well, and that's a repeat customer. Well, maybe they're giving their friend some coffee to try, and maybe this or that. And you go, you have to have that constant expectation on what you're doing. So while you're at the roaster for the first time for our first meeting, you're like, oh, you'll have to come by the restaurant sometime. I'm like, that's weird that she's calling the bakery a restaurant, but okay. You're like, oh, no, I'm talking about chips. What the hell?
Chips.
What is going on here?
I don't know, man.
You opened a restaurant.
I don't know.
Tara's on fire.
And it's funny because the second you mentioned it, because when did it open?
End of January. It was a super soft, quiet open. Just, we just opened the doors and it was three of us. It was one person to serve tables, myself, one person to do drinks, Tim, and then Gina was in the kitchen. So we didn't want to overwhelm ourselves, but we started with a very bare bones staff. Gina is Lisa's sister, so Gina had also moved up from Chicago. Unfortunately, the restaurant that was right next to Hot Hands was not doing well. I think they got really, the pandemic hit them pretty hard, and things just were not going the way that they had planned. And it was just it. I was talking with one of the investors for the place, and for Chips, and it just kind of reconcepted and hung a bunch of shit on the walls, and
it was crazy. The day or two before Friends and Family, the 3 or 4 of us were it was a completely different restaurant. It looked just like the previous restaurant. They had brought in all these things, and we were like, okay, we're just gonna go. And so Tara had just took a drill and just like a badass just went into the wall. She put up all these decorations, and Gina was a big part of it. And
the lighting, her vision for the lighting was I could not have done that. Just, it's super dark and sexy, and everyone looks great when they're there, and it's just the music is too loud for the neighborhood we've been hearing, but
there's an ambiance.
They'll learn to love it.
I think they'll learn to love it.
Yeah, but it's just I don't know. The 3 of us got together and we're thinking about a place that, it's it's during a pandemic, which is really scary to open a full service restaurant during that when no one is going out. But, the neighborhood's been super supportive with Hot Hands. And I think a lot of the overflow, I've announced it on our Instagram, and a lot of our regulars were super supportive of Chips. And it's just, we wanted to just make a place that people wanted to hang out at, just good drinks, good cocktails. We have a cheeseburger. We have ramen, which is, people are like, what kind of food is it? And I'm like, comfort, American, just things that we all like to eat,
Such simple food, just done
Gina
so
can make
well,
And you mentioned that you got one of the chefs from Al Cheval.
She has some experience in that restaurant group, and so I think that a lot of success from the burger is coming from the fact that Gina worked at a place that had one of the best burgers in the country.
And just they just
and
do
she
it
had
so
opened.
well.
She was a big part of the culinary launch of the Al Cheval in New York, and she's just operationally so solid on building a menu and building it. It's really impressive what she can do, and to see the type of menu that she put forward, and then to watch one cook execute it. I was like, how did you do this? Like, how did you? Wow. And just, it's so impressive the way that she built the menu, because it's so smart, but it's still, it's very labor intensive on the front end, but it doesn't put us in a place to where you can't execute the food. You can come into Chips, get incredible food, and it'll hit your table in 10 minutes.
And I emailed you the post, but I saw a Tom Horgan post about it, which, you know, you may not be super familiar with him, having just moved here, but he's one of those food critics. I think he used to work for the Trib, or still does, but he's one of those guys that I follow because his reviews are legit. You get like these Foodstagram influencers, and they're like, everything's amazing,
Sure.
and I unfollow you because I'm like, it's like, okay, if everything is
the best thing you've ever had,
exactly. And he said right away, he's like, easily top 10 burger of all time, and to be able to do that in such a short amount of time with a place that you just opened up and have somebody walk in and be like, instantly, no debate, it's top 10 burger of all time. And it was almost saying like, it's in the top 10. I just need to decide where now. And to have that happen, and that's where I'm like, I need to go there now. When you see that happening already for a place like that, it's something like, well, why would a baker start a restaurant that is burgers and ramen? This reputation thing that you go, well, once somebody develops a reputation for quality, you put your reputation at risk by doing something like this. If you were to open and people didn't like it, then they go, okay, well, she's a baker, can't do this.
Yeah, stay in your lane kind of thing.
Stay in your lane. But if you can do this and do it well, which it's seeming like already it's beginning to develop a reputation for that, then that reputation grows. And you go, oh, she's got a successful bakery and a really great restaurant, and that reputation continues to build on itself, where all of a sudden it's just, this person is quality, like this person is really kicking ass across different channels. And like those are the types of things where you look at someone like Stephanie Izard, or you look at different chefs in the area here, where it doesn't matter what they open, like people are in. And I think of like Kamal Muhammad is a great example of Nashville Coop, just a couple doors down from you. He just opened Stepchild in Minneapolis. And my gut reaction is when I hear somebody open something outside of their lane, I'm like, I really hope this is good, because I love them.
It looks super good. I haven't gone yet.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And they're crushing.
I've seen a ton of great feedback so far.
Yeah.
And it's because of what he focuses on, is the quality has to come first. And I think that's what is going to potentially happen here, is as people go there, they go, okay, now the place next door is awesome too. And then opportunities have you heard of the Flywheel Concept before?
I don't know. What is it?
Okay, it's one of my favorite concepts, and
for the listeners who don't know,
of course,
right?
Yeah,
I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah, it's the Flywheel Concept is if you've seen a flywheel before, it's the thing that's really hard to get started at first, and so the first turn takes all your energy to get going. Then each successive turn is faster and faster and faster, and then there gets to be a point where like it's barely any effort to keep it going and going faster, and so the first stages of it are like opening your first ever business and opening Hot Hands Bakery, but then people start liking that. Then you open a restaurant, you already have an established customer base. They go in there, try that the first time, that tastes better. And over time, opportunities will be easier to come across and execute on because you've got this reputation behind you. And so it's coming together now in my mind is like why that works like it does is because coming from a world where expectations are very high and keeping the pressure on yourselves and on your teams to execute at that level, like nothing ends up slipping. And I'm excited to try Chips. It didn't work out last week because I had to go have dinner with my family. I was like, I probably shouldn't bail on that. It's been on the calendar for like a month.
Hey, bring your family to Chips.
Now that you've waited, we have a patio. So
there's a patio.
It's probably better that
Hot Hands and Chips
Hot Hands
are
and Chips
sharing it.
are sharing a patio, and it's
They're
super dope.
Little siblings just got to make sure they keep getting along.
Yeah.
Keep sharing the patio
I can't
space.
wait to go to it, and we're going to line it up so that I can grab a coffee and then head over to Chips for a burger because they overlap in the hours. I'm like, this is the first time I can go coffee and burger.
Checked. There's a great optometrist also next door.
Right there.
I was just about
Get
to
your
ask.
eye exam.
There you go. So
in
that's
between that.
there's a potential special
Three
deal
birds.
there.
For sure.
3 birds with 1 stone. Come on,
mean,
guys.
You need new contacts? Go visit Lauren.
Well, it reminds me-
Lauren's got you covered.
I used to sell beer in Missouri and
Yeah.
Columbia. There was this barber that had a free pitcher of beer with every haircut special. So maybe there's an
damn.
opportunity for a free
Yeah,
burger with
oh.
every eye check.
There's gotta be. There's gotta
I think
be
we'll
some.
figure that out pretty soon. I think we got to.
Or if someone doesn't like your food, they get a code for X amount off their next eye check because clearly you don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah. Oh,
Now-
dang. Oh, snap. Oh, snap.
Ooh, now that's the winner.
Oh, crap.
Let's get Max on that promotion, please.
But yeah, I'll get this episode up tomorrow, and we'll do the. Oh yeah, so I think the promotions we're doing are awesome because what I like is when I was like, "What should we do?" You're like, "Let's get weird," and I'm like,
Just
"Cool."
something weird.
Get
Yeah.
weird with it.
You got the free
We're funky.
free coffee special, which is awesome for everybody to be able to try it. I love that strategy of give away what you're doing well,
Yeah.
because then they're going to want it in the future if you're doing it well. And then we're going to do potentially like a rotating competition of a drink that the customers
love
the
that.
customers
Yeah,
can
that'd be so
design.
We are. We're not going to. We are. It's going to happen. It'll be super fun, I think. I think it's just like the more that it's fun for the guest, of course, but I also think it's like super helpful for me. Like, what are you looking for? I come from a completely different market. I want to know, what are you guys feeling up here? What would you want to see on the menu? I'll literally, if I have it, I'll make you literally anything. I'll make you whatever you want. If you want it in, we have certain cups for certain drinks. If you want this cup with this drink, someone was like, "What do I have to order to get this adorable cup?" You can order
Just anything.
You can order water. I'll give you whatever you want. So I want to know, what people are looking for, and it's a really good gauge for me, and it's a fun way to be like proactive and to get people's, get people pumped, get people
Yeah.
excited. Like, if you give me something really tasty, I'll put that shit on the menu.
Well, and the cool thing as a supplier, and this is probably not a thought you even have as you're getting creative in your promotions, is even just as I ask, is like, how down are you to get weird with promotions? And you're just like, anything. Now, any idea that pops in my head, I want to shoot your way.
Yeah.
And
Nothing's off the table.
No, and then but it's a small thing to know. But I've had customers, and this, like, especially on the retail side, like the grocery side, I'll have a customer be like, the less I hear from you, the better, because that means things are going well. And you're like, okay, here's our annual promotional plan. That's one that's going to be on sale. I'll get out of your hair.
Yeah.
And that's what they want. But you basically are opening up the door. Like, hey, if you can think of anything weird, let's do it. And those are the partnerships I like, because then it's like, hey, this is coming up. What if we did this? Or you're talking about St. Paul, and as things are opening up, and then, the state fair and all these different things that you go, well, we can't do it as a wholesale coffee roaster, but if I had a shop, this is what I do. And then it kind of fills that like excitement that I can go, oh, we can pass this on to them and be able to potentially do these things. And
That was a giant selling point for us to work with you in general, was just we felt like we could have a partnership rather than just a transactional exchange of beans for funds. Like, there are things that I think we're mutually passionate about, and I think that that's a non-negotiable thing for me when I'm looking for a new partnership. Is like, we're not doing this again. I'm not switching roasters again. I'm not. This is something to me that's very important, that our team can feel like they have a partnership with you too. When our team came back from the roastery tour, they were like, I don't know if they were just aggressively caffeinated. Yeah,
that's the secret.
But everybody, and for the next following days after, they were just like so pumped to make this switch and to be able to work with you. And like, we had sent out some teasers on an email blast to our guests, and I got some really fun responses back from people that were like, what is it? What is it? What is it? What is it? So, people I think are going to be pumped, and I think it's a good thing to have, the capabilities to excite the team like you guys have been able to do.
I will slip you your $10 bill under the table after the episode for that nice little segment.
I will take that.
But I think that's a great way to end the episode.
Yeah,
Super pumped to be working with you, but it's fun to hear your story and know more that goes into it, and know like what drives you, and it's obvious to see when you walk in there that you're just like instantly the first vibe you get is like, this place is immaculate. Like everything is so in its place, and it's just so clean.
Clean queen.
Oh, man.
Especially,
Deep clean Sundays.
Yes, that's the key.
Having come from the beer world and been in a bunch of back kitchens and been in coolers and seen how operations go, it never leaves your mind once you see it. And
Gotta keep it tight.
It is this weird thing where once you're in the industry long enough, it is just this feeling that you walk into a place and you're like, I haven't looked around enough yet, but you can kind of tell. And that the feeling in Hot Hands, and maybe it is because it's kind of just in a pretty commercial looking building that it creates that like, oh shit, this place is awesome in here.
Yeah, totally.
So very excited to work with you. And I'll end it like I do every other episode and say have a nice day.